Okay, sorry about that. I had a little bit of a long drive home, but now we should be live. So, how do I... Oops, what am I doing? Oh my goodness, I do not know how to do anything. This is not good. This is not a good start, rather. Oops, what am I doing? Okay, there we go. Oh my goodness, I do not know how to do anything. This is not good. This is not a good start, rather. Alright. Now, do I want to see if there are any people in VC? There are not any people in VC. So, now I am going to watch one of these C.S. Joseph YouTube channel things while I draw and do my little review on it. So I should see if there are any pop-out chats. Might be dead today. That's okay though. I'll post it in here too. Okay. Y'all can see what kind of person I am from this. Shooter identifies as transgender. That is not surprising. First female shooter, and she identifies as transgender. Where... There we go.
I gave you all I own, put you on this golden throne, but I'm a little stronger now.
What's up, Egohackers? Welcome to the C.S. Joseph podcast. I'm your host, C.S. Joseph. Today's Acolyte question, we're going to be discussing learning styles. And I'm actually really excited for this question. And today's question is, what is the learning style, the primary learning style of the ENTP archetype? Great. A question I get to talk about myself in, finally. It's been a while since we've had an ENTP question, which is cool. And I also noticed that we have an ISTJ question coming up around the corner very soon, getting some more of the sensors in there. Need more ESFJ questions, folks. Need more ESTJ questions. Just more SJ questions would be nice. And also some more SP questions. Need more sensing-based questions. But yeah, like if you guys want to get questions relating to your type, become an Acolyte member and combined with the Journeyman membership. It's only $100 a month. And you get one question a month where you get to ask the team, where myself or Chris Taylor will be answering it here on the podcast or on the YouTube channel. Basically any question you want within reason. Sometimes we reject questions and have you change your question, but for the most part we try to get every one of them in that we can. So yeah, check that out, csjoseph.life/members to become Journeyman, then upgrade to Acolyte from there, or csjoseph.life/portal if you already are a Journeyman, and you can upgrade to Acolyte from there as well. So anyway, yeah, it's awesome learning styles. You know, I always get confused on learning styles because there's so many different. And I will admit, just like up front, I am not an expert at learning styles at all. I'm really just an expert at Jungian analytical psychology and four sides dynamics. as well as octogram. But I really just, it's not really my strong suit. Honestly, Chris Taylor is definitely more effective at answering learning style questions than I am, because he's got a lot more experience with it. And he's always told me about how ENFPs, for example, are always visual learners, and they require visual aids in order for them to really take in information. And that visual aid assists extroverted thinking child to be able to make the connections, because they have introverted thinking trickster, which makes it very difficult for them to filter information and actually put the information in a proper order. Whereas if you have a visual aid, for example, the ENFP is able to actually see the connections between the information very easily, and it makes it a lot easier for their extroverted thinking child to absorb them. However, when it comes to ENTPs are a little bit more, we're like, the level of interesting that we have is, well, it's very interesting, because we have introverted thinking parent, but we also have extroverted thinking critic. So we're able to interface with the entire spectrum of thinking judgment, basically, because it's two pessimistic functions. It is our parent function and our critic. And when you have introverted decision make, or an introverted or an extroverted decision making function, that basically gives you mastery over thinking versus feeling. Like, for example, INFJs are masters over feeling in terms of morals and ethics and that perspective, because they have F functions in their parent and their critic slot, right? Just like I have T functions in my parent and critic slot. Same thing goes with the ENFP for their introverted feeling parent and extroverted feeling critic. However, where the ENFP struggles is, the fact that their T functions is child and trickster, so then it makes it very difficult, especially from a learning perspective. Learning is often done, well, at least the information that comes from learning, basically, you perceive information with your perception functions, but to actually really learn and filter or categorize that information properly, you have to rely on your T functions, which is extroverted thinking and introverted thinking, in order to actually pull that off, right? So how does an ENTP go about doing it? Well, ENTPs, we're a little bit different. There's a certain phenomenon when it comes to learning and how we take in information, because I have heard from multiple people, including my INFJ mentor, Robert Moriel. He made it very clear to me that, like, one day we were in like a Whole Foods one day, actually, and going down the aisle, and I read like everything super quick. Like, I take in all of the information in front of me super quick. I read so fast that I could read every single product that's in the aisle, and then my logic, my introverted thinking parent is like, okay, is this what we're looking for or not? Is this or not? Is this it or not? Is this it or not? And just going through that process on every single item on the shelf, and I do it within a few seconds. It's just done, and I'm like, nope, it's not here, move on, or, oh, there it is, and then I hand it to him. And he's like, wow, no one takes in information faster than you do, Chase. And the thing is that no one takes in information faster than ENTPs. I mean, we're starter types. We're all about, speed and whatnot. Plus, we have that mastery of thinking because our T functions are both in the parent and the critic slot simultaneously. Similar to INTJs, the thing is that INTJs, because they have introvert intuition hero, it's like a sniper rifle, so their range of vision is extremely small. It's like looking through a periscope or a sniper scope on a sniper rifle, looking at each individual thing, and it takes them a while to get through it, even though they are, triple progression, triple movement, and they're very quick as a result. The thing is, though, is that it's still difficult for them. But for me, extrovert intuition hero, basically, it's like a shotgun, and it's a shotgun going out, but it's a shotgun coming in, and I can just take in all that information all at once, and then instantly filter it with introverted thinking parent. Makes it a lot easier. So ENTPs being able to take in information so quickly is an amazing skill. But because of extrovert intuition hero, we're also able to parse out our brains to multitask and taking in information while also simultaneously doing a task in some other capacity at the same time. which is also pretty amazing that we're even able to actually do that, right? So one of the things that we're able to do, because of that, Fib on the Discord server, he is also living proof of this, because I told him one day, it's like, hey, why don't you just get like one of your Apple AirPods or a wireless, earbud and stick it in your ear while you're doing your job and listen to audiobooks while you're doing the menial tasks of your job. And he did. And he read books rapidly. This is actually how I read so many books. Like, my record of the amount of books that I read in like 1 year was 22 books in a year. I'm trying to get up to 26 books a year, which is one book every 2 weeks, basically. But, basically when I'm working or doing menial tasks, I'm always listening to an audiobook. And that's, in my opinion, the main learning style of an ENTP is auditory. We just can take in information auditorily very easily, and then we're able to even go even further as we're listening to information and taking in concepts. We're also able to like perform menial tasks at the same time, which allows us to, save so much time. It means that we can have this really lousy dead-end minimum wage job, for example, or any job for that matter that could be potentially boring, but we're still being consistently stimulated by taking in new information and learning simultaneously. And it keeps our brain awake, because otherwise our brain would just be like, oh, this is so boring, this is so dull. We're actually able to like take care of our brains in that particular moment, because it's like, hey, I'm able to distract myself with taking in all this additional information, like that shotgun approach of taking it all in. And that's what we end up doing, and it's amazing. So auditory, it's great to be able to learn it. But here's the other thing, is that sometimes though, it's not enough for us to take in information or concepts, from an auditory perspective. Sometimes when it comes to actually learning physical tasks instead of conceptual things,
Yay! Hey, Atlas.
Physical tasks.
Thanks for
really
joining.
It's just not enough for someone to show us how to do it. We're not really necessarily visual learners that way. We have to experiment and do the thing ourselves. So we have to have someone to mimic. So we end up mimicking them. So yeah, auditory may be our primary learning style, but we also have to do the action or do the skill ourselves and then repeat it. And we learn through repetition of us doing it. So we have to experiment with it, which is also potentially, we end up failing a lot. It's kind of like, Tesla saying, oh yeah, I discovered or is it Edison? No, I don't think it's Edison. Edison's a crook anyway. I think it's Tesla that said, and I could be wrong. Someone put it in the comments and correct me, please. But oh, I see you failed a lot there, and it's like, oh no, I just discovered 1,000 different ways to not do it, to do this task wrong, because you only need to figure out how to do it right.
It
once,
is Edison.
Basically.
That's from.
And that's what ENTP is all about. We have
Rich.
to consistently experiment over and over and over with things until we get to a point where we're comfortable with doing the skill, comfortable with the repetition, comfortable with doing mimicry, mimicking what we saw someone else do, but we have to do it ourselves until it becomes second nature for ourselves, basically. So auditory first, but then we have to learn through mimicry and repetition. We have to prove our learning, basically, through mimicry and repetition. We have to do it ourselves. So we take in the information, from an auditory perspective, and that's our preferred learning style. It's so funny because, like, oftentimes, we'll even produce visual aids to help people understand us, but when people are presenting us visual aids, we barely pay attention to those visual aids, much to their chagrin. It really bothers them sometimes, and usually we're just listening and, like, trying to get all the information, from an auditory perspective, but then, still we have to prove that we learned it, and we do that through mimicking someone else or mimicking or trying it out for ourselves, trying out the ideas for ourselves. Now, Robert Potts, who's in the community, he's a madman on the Discord server. And if you want to get on our Discord server, that's discord.gg/egohackers. You might want to go check that out. Please join the Discord server. It's hyperactive. We're coming up on 1,600 active users on the Discord server. It's very well moderated, not very much trolling or abuse that you would typically see on a Discord server. But the point is that, you know, you can talk to all these people that I'm talking about and just message them and be like, hey, CSJ mentioned you on the podcast, you know, who are you? What are you all about? You can have conversations with them, and they can also confirm the things that I'm saying about them as well. But the point is that you got to get to a point where, you know, as an ENTP, you are learning auditorily, but you have to, with your auditory learning, but you have to prove it. You have to mimic it. You have to experiment. You know, sure, you can be shown something, but if you don't do it yourself and prove to, like, say an ISTP is showing you how to do something, if you don't do it yourself and then keep trying and keep repeating it and keep trying to mimic them, you're not really going to gain the skill. But as I said, Robert Potts calls it being the method actor of process. ENTPs take the specific skill or the lesson and they wear it as a second skin and they try it out. They try good things, they try bad things, they try evil things. We try everything because we're pragmatic like that. We're very independent and we're going to keep trying. And then eventually, as it becomes our second skin and we are this thing, you know, then we'll cut away, we'll parse the things that we don't want anymore or that are useless to us, basically. And it basically becomes a part of ourselves. But we couldn't get there without initially having that auditory learning. So, and that is the answer. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.
No, that's a very good point. I learn all of my any type of obsession I take up, whether that's health or diet or insurance sales. I have audiobooks for everything that I'm learning, and I have podcasts that I follow for everything that I want to get obsessed with. So, yeah, I can't argue there. And the whole thing about experimentation, yeah, very, very, very true. Anything that I want to learn, I definitely have to get my feet wet with it. I have to try it out in the real world, or else I'm not convinced that it actually works. And I won't actually give it much weight unless I have seen it work in the real world, which is why when I see people get really, really into CSJ theory and just like start talking about all these weird different conclusions they have about certain types, I get a little bit skeptical. And people might think that ENTPs are concrete because they do this, but you can say whatever you want about a certain type or a certain. You can have like all this, like, I mean, it goes for everything. Like, you can have all the studies and all the papers and all the theories about whatever claim you're making, but if it doesn't agree with experiment, if you actually haven't seen it in the real world, it's wrong. Like, straight up. If you can't actually implement it in the real world and show me that it is a functioning thing, then I don't care about your logic, I don't care about your arguments, I don't care about the graphs and the charts and the what are they called, the models, the projections. I actually want to see it. So yeah, I completely agree with that. Okay, let's see. What's another one I can do? How to spot an SDSF. Oh, that is a very useful thing to know, actually. Because I am actually compatible with SDSF INTJs. So this is a good topic because if you are trying to get with your golden pair, which people assume is the best thing for you to get with, you should be going with somebody that has your same octagram, not the opposite octagram, because that actually can be very much like just very, very chaotic and very high highs and very low lows. So you want to get with someone who has your same octagram focus.
Put you on this golden road.
Welcome to the C.S. Joseph podcast. I'm your host, C.S. Joseph. Today's Acolyte question: what does an INTJ SDSF look like? So this question is an octagram related question. Octagram is our version of the Enneagram. It's this thing that maps out human nurture, basically. Enneagram has its flaws because it's mixing human nature and nurture simultaneously without actually providing any like differentiation. And then people mix that with the MBTI and they end up having a really bad, it just leads to confusion because you're getting the nature component from MBTI, you're getting a nature component from Enneagram, and it just leads to confusion, and people are like, oh, this doesn't really work. The other problem with Enneagram, it's from a perspective of the 9, and when you have the trickster function present within humanity, that's where you end up getting things like 9 things from Enneagram or 7 things in the 7 deadly sins, and it's not actually accurate. There's actually 8 deadly sins. Pope Gregory got at the 16th, I believe. Pope Gregory basically took vainglory and put it into pride, even though it's not. It's its own separate thing. It used to be 8 deadly sins, and then they turned it into the 7 deadly sins, blah, blah, blah. That's like world history, right? But that's not true. So the thing is that we created octograms so people could understand human nurture and understand the subvariants of each of the 16 types. And there are 4 variants, right? We have SDSF, which this video is about, SDUF, and then you have UDSF and UDUF. I'm UDUF, okay? And then there are, according to Strauss and Howe theory, and I got to give Lane, the ESTJ, also known as Elliot, God bless Elliot for coming up with this connection with his expert intuition child because he's an ESTJ. He came up with this connection on the Discord server, so I got to give credit where it's due. Thank you for your participation in the community, Elliot. You continue to kick ass with all of these concepts you come up with. Using your ENFJ shadow to do it, or superego to do it. I love how you're kind of like this little hidden teacher that we have on the Discord server. It's pretty awesome. Trying to get this thing to light. Ooh, holy smokes! There we go. There we go. Got it to light. Cool. Gosh, it's really nice out. Extremely nice day.
Come on, Chase.
So, anyway, one of those 4 archetypes, according to Strauss and Howe, basically, according to their book, The Fourth Turning, which you haven't watched it, what are you doing with your life? But there's the generation archetype that's associated with joy. There's then the next archetype that's associated with decay. The next archetype that's associated with hope. And then the final archetype, which is despair, basically. Well, each of our octograms are attached to these archetypes. And the SDSF is the archetype that's attached to joy. So the INTJ SDSF type is basically the most joyful INTJ you can actually find. They're the INTJs that are like, hey, don't be cramping my style, basically. That's kind of their point of view, which I find utterly fascinating. I'm being stared down right now by an INFJ woman. Oh my God, apparently this is like piss off any nemesis day. It's easy to spot INFJ women. They're always the ones with the pixie haircuts. Always.
Good to know.
So anyway, from that point of view, like it's interesting to know, SDSF is associated with joy, and why is that? Well, it's because the SDSF INTJ was entirely enabled as a child. This is where their child function, was allowed free reign in their family. Maybe they were the source of sympathy, the primary source of sympathy for their family. They probably had 2 extroverted feelers as parents, and they just kind of reveled in that. And then they just became subconscious developed because of how enabled they were. And then they got past their adolescence, and then they were and then they went into adulthood, but their life is entirely structured around that same enablement that they received as a child, basically. There is one INTJ SDSF right now in the Egohacker community. He's actually a member of the mod team. His name is Christian Sarecchia. He was the person who won our very, very first free coaching session giveaway to be typed years and years ago. I think it was like maybe 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago. And he's been pretty well enabled throughout his life. Yeah, his family may have had some issues here and there, but the reality of the situation is, like, they supported him with his singing career, and then now he's an instructor for singing, and he's actually my singing instructor, although I haven't had a session with him.
Oh yeah, I've heard him sing, actually.
But he's really good at what he does, and just a few sessions with him, I was able to increase my singing skill such that I was actually able to perform decently well at karaoke, for example.
Nice.
Now I can sing Far From Home and NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and all those boy bands.
I need to have a karaoke session with Chase.
Heart Temple, Beta boy bands, and I can sing their songs pretty well, So, and special thanks to Christian Sarecchia for helping me get through that and develop my singing skills to do so. But what ends up happening is that they get subconscious developed, so throughout his childhood, he was a performer, and like his family would react positively to him being a performer, which is pretty awesome. But then, like later in life, now he's actually teaching it. He's teaching it. He got properly educated at some of the best schools related to the craft for singing and performance, and he's basically an expert. He's an expert, and he teaches other people. Has his own business doing so, and he is still subconscious focused on his ESFP side, and that is looping him back into his INTJ ego. So his ego is getting a ton of support. Now, from an octagram perspective, understanding the differences of the 4 potential octograms for an INTJ. So the INTJ ego primarily wants reverence, which means a deep level of respect, whereas their shadow, ENTP shadow, is looking for satisfaction out of life. The thing is, though, is that when you become SDSF, your ESFP is also looking for reverence, and then your ego is also looking for reverence, but they're so focused on it, deep respect is everything to them. Everything. So if you want to unlock the heart of an SDSF INTJ, just shower them with deep respect, because they're looking for 3 helpings of that deep respect, reverence related.
Oh yeah, that would definitely go good with me.
Cognitive origin, and they don't really care about satisfaction as much. They're willing to let go of their own personal satisfaction in exchange for additional reverence. Whereas like an SDUF is looking for 2 parts reverence, 1 part satisfaction. UDSF is the same, 2 parts reverence, 1 part satisfaction. But UDUF, which is different, which is more of a survival mechanism, if anything, they're actually looking for 2 parts satisfaction and 1 part of reverence in life. So because of that, they structure their entire life around which cognitive origins they're actually looking for. So this is why, when I'm in Christian's presence, I always show him respect. Always up his status. Always, increase his ego. Because like when you're SDSF as an INTJ, you are outwardly egotistical, basically, but internally desecrating. So like Christian will naturally he will actually desecrate his own ego. He'll try to take down his ego a few notches already, and he really likes it when other people are willing to just tell him
yeah, this is a kind
his
of
ego and bring his ego
like
down a few notches,
a few levels
based on
deep.
how enabled he is in his life.
I'll explain a little bit
what?
after.
It's way up there, like way up there,
And you're welcome for the help.
So, but that's just his development side. That's the SD side. On the cognitive focus side, deadly sin of vainglory versus the living virtue of modesty. He's very outwardly modest, and he is he looks modest, and how he conducts himself, he's really modest, but he's very internally vainglorious. So over time, he's working on increasing, his own vanity, and he really likes being around, vainglorious people, because he is the modest one, hoping that that vaingloriousness, that high level focus of achievement that vainglory actually brings, will rub off on him, so that he could achieve more. So he likes to be in relationships with people
Or
who
vainglorious.
increase his level of achievement or enable him to achieve more, right? So that he could have more joy in his life, so he can get more deep respect in his life, deep respect, that reverence, cognitive origin, which increases his joy, basically, right? So that's ultimately what an SDSF INTJ actually looks like. And folks, if you want to learn more about Octagram, we are doing an Octagram series right now behind the paywall, csjoseph.life/members. Become a journeyman member. We are doing Octagram episodes and explaining what each of the Octagram variants look like at a deep level, at a fundamental level, for each of the 16 types right now for our newest season, which is season 32 for our premium lectures. And again, it's available at csjoseph.life/members. 2 episodes are released per month for the premium lecture series that we're
I wish
working on right now,
whenever
going
he
in
would
deeper
start
on these
promoing,
Octagrams.
he would
So, yeah.
take on a different
But, you
voice,
know,
be like,
most people
CS
say,
Joseph
like, you know,
/ lectures.
SDSF,
If you want to learn
INTJs
more.
are entirely
I would like
entitled.
that.
They really think that. And yeah, it's because they're using both their FI functions, FI child and FI parent, within their ego and their subconscious on a regular basis. So they really come off super entitled.
Like
That's
Sexy
why they kinda
Phil.
need
That's
other
what he
people
would
outside
do.
of them to
Philip
desecrate
DeFranco.
them sometimes and just be honest with them and take them down a couple of notches, because then they see that person as being real with them. If someone's fluffing up their ego, then they're going to see that person as like someone who's trying to take advantage of them or someone who's fake, and it's going to trigger their extrovert intuition nemesis, and then they're going to get paranoid about that person, right? So if you're endeavoring to have a relationship with an SDSF, just make sure that you just got to be completely honest with them, even willing potentially to be harsh with them, but do it in a respectful manner. But they'll really, really appreciate it. They'll actually be super grateful because they're using their 2 FI functions. FI is the function of gratitude, it's the function of sympathy. They will shower you in gratitude. They will shower you in sympathy. They will shower you in trust. And trust is really important because they can be,
Yeah, he's also an
gullible as a result.
ENTP.
They're at risk of being gullible from a virtue and vice perspective. If you guys don't know what virtue and vice is, watch the season 7 playlist here on the YouTube and on the podcast as well. So anyway, folks, that's what an INTJ, SD, SF, Joy, Octagram variant looks like. So thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.
I didn't actually think that I could be with an SDSF. I thought that was like taboo or something. Something gave me that impression, but... So, I'll explain a little bit of what, the octagram is. So, I'll do a visual here.
I gave you all
No, you didn't. Okay, so... Do you know anything, CP, about 4 sides of the mind? That was my first question, because this is how it goes. Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah, I remember being 13 years old and watching Philip DeFranco show and learning my little news sessions from him. And he was always like super neutral about everything, which makes sense because he's an FI trickster. And he was just like, let me know how you feel about people in the comments down below. And it was just like, yeah, all that free FI, huh? Anyway. Ego, so, okay, yeah, So, let's go with INTJ because that's what we were just talking about. SDSF would mean that I don't know if you've heard of focus before, but a lot of the times we would just say that if somebody was more developed in a certain side of their mind than anything else, they would be focused in that side of the mind. But now we have a little bit more information, and we can say that despite somebody being focused or somebody being developed in a side of their mind, they can also be... Cat, why are you interrupting my stream? So, somebody can be focused in one area, but developed in another area. So, U stands for unconscious, which would be the ENTP, and S stands for subconscious, which would be the ESFP. So in this case, if you are both developed in your ESFP side of the mind and also focused in your side of the mind, that would make you subconscious developed, subconscious focused, which basically means you have a lot of basically skill built up in your side of the mind of ESFP, but you are also currently, as of right now, focusing on developing your ESFP even more. So the focus is a lot easier to change than the development, because all you would have to do to change your focus is to go into a period where you start developing a particular side of the mind. So if this person was SDSF, they could very easily change into being subconscious developed, but unconscious focused. And if they were mostly unconscious developed, they could also be unconscious focused. But then if they wanted to change that focus, they could be UDSF, which would be they have mostly ENTP built up, but now they're going to switch to ESFP. That's just a little bit of how it works. I am mostly subconscious developed, and for a long time I believe I was SDSF, but right now in my current period of development I am SDUF. So I am working at the moment on my INTJ shadow, while I have been for the majority of my life been working on my subconscious. Does that make sense? Marriage misconceptions of the lust types.
Welcome to the C.S. Joseph podcast. I'm your host, C.S. Joseph. Today's question, which is a rough question, but I'm so glad it's asked. I've been waiting to answer this question for a while. So it's
sorry if you can hear my cat. She is hungry.
How can INFJs
and somebody else is feeding her, not me.
How can someone be married to an INFJ or a lust type, like so INFJ or ESTP? How can someone be married to an INFJ or an ESTP and have them still be loyal in the relationship, have them still stick around the relationship?
That's a cool
even
style.
Though they fall in love very easily with other people because they're these lust types? Well, that's false. That is, the question in of its own right is actually false, because the thing is that ESTPs and INFJs, while they are lust types, and lust basically is another word for jealousy. I know, like, we're using a lot of...
So, just to recap on what he was... Jazzy! 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 Stop! Stop it! Stop doing that thing! Stop! Oh my gosh, it's not gonna stop her. I tried. Sorry, I was SE demoning at my cat. Come here! Come here, Jazzy. Jazzy! I'm gonna... Jesus Christ. You're so distracting. Hang on. Let me see if I can get her to stop it. So I have this cat here. I'm gonna talk a little bit about. Stop it. Stop it. So what C.S. Joseph was talking about was he was saying how to identify an SDINTJ, and that was basically they were very enabled. They were very enabled in their childhood, so they were given chances to perform, and stop death kicking me. So they were giving a lot of chances to perform in their childhood. So they are going to be very joyful and very, very willing to perform. They're going to be very willing to perform, and they're not going to have that same kind of performance anxiety that a UD... Stop it. That a UD... I'm going to start flipping you around. That a UD kind of... Shush. Stop it. Okay.
Oh, hell no.
What?
Fucker. No, I did something.
Okay, so...
No.
So...
No matter how much you cry, you ain't getting it right now.
So, sorry, this cat is very, very distracting to me. So a SDSF is a very, very enthusiastic kind of INTJ, but it's interesting because apparently they're also very humble, which is interesting in the sense that I personally, as another SD type, being an ENTP, have the trait of vainglory, which they prefer to be around to kind of like vicariously experience more reverence or more respect, like more deep respect. So it's a very interesting dynamic in it, and I want to actually go over it again later to kind of like learn how all that works,
How dare you?
because
Thanks for taking up on the dare cat.
huh?
Time's the cat.
Oh,
Oops.
I hope you enjoyed me flipping my cat around to stop her from crying so much. Okay.
Sexually charged terms when it comes to the four temples and the soul temple and the specific soul temple Templar, which is INFJ and ESTP types. Basically, these types, yeah, they're very lustful. Yeah, they have the highest body counts, and have the sex with the most people because they're just starving for connection, starving for intimacy with fellow human beings. Yes, that's definitely a part of their life. That's just kind of how they roll. And they typically do have the highest body counts out of everyone, or even in certain cases, very rarely, the lowest body count because of their living virtue of chastity. But let's look at the definitions of lust versus chastity without the sexual charge to them. So lust also translates directly to jealousy, which is wanting what other people have. That's not the same as envy. Envy is just getting mad at other people for having more than you when you've put in the same or the more effort than they have. That's what envy is. It's actually about measuring effort, really, and measuring reward based on effort. Whereas lust is all about just wanting what other people have. Chastity is the opposite of that. Chastity is all about doing the best with what you have because it's what you have. It's about optimizing, getting more out of what you already have, basically, and protecting what you already have. That's what chastity is. And it means to be chaste. It also means to not pollute yourself, right?
There we go.
So, in the context of this question, the specific acolyte who's asked this question is basically trying to figure out, it's like, what guarantee is there if I marry an ESTP or an INFJ that they're not just going to go, fall in love with somebody else super quick and then end up betraying me or ruining our family or ruining our relationship? Like, what are the chances that's going to happen? And the thing is that, like, well, I understand your fear there, but that's not how ESTPs and INFJs actually work. That has nothing to do with it. It really doesn't. So, you folks need to be aware of something about them, because it's a misnomer or a misconception of ESTPs and INFJs.
I want to give her
These
little
are
blushes.
not the people who fall in love easily. They really don't. They get infatuated easily, but they don't fall in love easy. Actually, the reality is that ESTPs and INFJs, it is the most difficult for them out of the 16 types to fall in love with somebody. That is actually why they have such high body counts typically. It's because it's difficult for them. It's really difficult for them. And oftentimes, people just don't even realize how or why this is even happening. And it's because they have a really hard time connecting with other people. Don't forget, their God functions are extrovert intuition, which means deep down, regardless of their type, they definitely want to be wanted. And their other God function is introverted feeling. So introverted feeling means is that they care about having high self-worth. They care about being people of high value and high character, right? But the thing is that they still have that need, that intrinsic need for intimacy and connection with other people. The thing is that it has to be prolonged connection, prolonged intimacy. The problem is that, oftentimes they don't know if they're making the right choice in terms of who they're supposed to be connected with. And that's why they do loyalty checks and push people away to see if they'll come back, which can be an abusive behavior. That's why other times they put other people that are outside of their families, outside of their relationships at a higher level than the people that they are, because they're focusing on quantity over quality. Why? Because these two types are looking for a high level of attention. They want to harvest attention. And the thing is that for them to feel truly connected and intimate with someone, they basically have to have that person as a consistent source of attention. And it has really nothing to do with sexuality. It's a consistent source of attention that they just need all the time. I remember when Railgun and I first got together, and she asked me, will you always be my playmate? Because she just wanted to be connected with me. She wanted to do everything with me. It's all about doing things with me and being invited to do things with me. That's what it was all about to her. That was the most important thing. And it's so hard for an NI inferior to make the choice to choose one person to be connected with on a prolonged basis, and that person to be their playmate. And it's the same goes with INFJs. They also have a very hard time making that choice because commitment is an SI demon, basically, from their perspective. Versus the choice is a little bit more difficult with the ESTP because it's NI inferior, right? So because of that, they're afraid. And so because of that fear, and they act in fear, they end up trying to connect with as many people as possible, to have as many sources of attention as possible to fill that attention hole that's within their souls, basically. But that way they don't have to really rely on that one person that they're burning out, potentially, for that one person's attention, which would likely be their lover, basically. It's kind of like having a wardrobe of clothes, and there's some really, really special clothes that you have, but you choose not to wear those clothes all the time because you don't want to wear them out. Things wearing out really stress out ESTPs and INFJs, but they also know deep down that they have a tendency to wear out people, and they're afraid of that. So they try to play it safe by increasing the amount of people that they can be connected with, including, with their sexuality, to have multiple sources of attention, so there's no risk of wearing those people out, basically. And then also at the same time, if they do find someone that they want to have to commit to in a sexual relationship, well, guess what? That person typically has to be an extremely high introverted sensor, because they're like, oh, I'm not going to wear this person out, and they'll still be able to give me attention. And that's why, it's so easy for SJs to get with ESTPs and INFJs, because they just stick around. They're just the last man standing. After they've worn out everyone else, those people stay right there. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, there's a lot less risk with it, and oftentimes people don't even realize, the consequences of this thing. So a healthier ESTP and INFJ has identified the people that don't really wear out so easily, and then they prioritize those people to stick around with, because at the end of the day, lust types aren't really seeking a huge volume of people to be with sexually or even to get their attention. It's just a defense mechanism. If they had their way, they'd be super idealistic because of their idealization pull for their temple wheel as a result of being Soul Temple Templars. If you want to learn more about temples, please watch season 18. Thank you. So yeah. So they idealize others. So if it were up to them, they'd be like all in on monogamy, really. It's just that from their perspective, acting like, a serial monogamous or being poly or having tons of sexual partners, it's really just a defense mechanism, because they're just afraid. They're afraid of committing to the wrong person. They're just afraid of being connected to the wrong person, to a person who would wear out easily, a person that they would wear out. And that's what they're really afraid of. But if it was up to them, they just have the one, basically, someone that they're not going to wear out. And that's what means everything to them. So in reality, you don't have to be worried about having a sexual relationship with them, as long as you're not being worn out by them, and they never think that you're being worn out by them. Then you don't have anything to concern yourself with. You're safe to be in a relationship with them, and they will stick with you, because then they'll start using their chastity living virtue instead of their vice of lust. They use their vice of lust to get that quantity of attention, because it's a defense mechanism. But then if you're not being worn out by them, they don't have to use lust anymore, which means they can just invest everything into you, and then they'll use their chastity and do the best with what they have. What they have being you, basically, doing the best with what you have, right? And that's critical. I'm losing my cigar here.
There we go.
There we go, it's back.
Hey.
So yeah, that's majorly important. I'm trying to think of the other point I was trying to make, or if I was going to. So again, it's incumbent upon you as their partner to just make sure that you're not being worn out by them, and continue to share experiences with them, include them into things, and show them that you're not getting bored of them. That is what is absolutely critical. You just have to prove to them that you're not bored of them. If only I could prove that to Railgun, because she's constantly using her defense mechanism of her deadly sin of lust and trying to get so many different sources of attention, because she's constantly thinking that she's wearing me out. And it's like, no, you're not wearing me out. The issue is that you're not investing enough. It has nothing to do with being worn out, right? But she doesn't see it that way, because I'm an ENTP. We have a little bit of emotional compatibility, and it's really hard for me to communicate things with her on an emotional level, and as much as it is hard for her to communicate with things on an emotional level, not necessarily because of our emotional compatibility, which definitely that is an issue, but also based on her nurture. She's UDUF, and she has those struggles, right? And that's what ends up being the problem over time. So yeah, that's just that's what happens over and over. Very nice. So yeah.
Jeez, okay, you're going
I think that just about hammered.
You're going bye-bye.
You're going bye-bye. You're going bye-bye.
Okay.
Where's the question? So yeah, just don't be worn out, really, and just keep including them. And yeah, they won't use their lust. They're not going to fall in love with someone else. And remember, folks, the truth is they don't fall in love with people. There's my final point. I know what it is. So they don't fall in love so easily. It's so hard for them, as I've just demonstrated. The thing is that when they don't fall in love with somebody and they have these high body counts, they're able to do that because Soul Temple people have this thing where they can actually psychologically separate themselves. When they're being physically intimate with somebody, they can just kind of go in their own little world. They can just imagine different scenarios, kind of like when someone kind of checks out, basically. They can actually mentally check out, and they can actually treat sex as just sex. Whereas I'm Heart Temple. I cannot treat sex as just sex. When I have sex, it's a big deal. It's an event. Like I'm all in or all out, that kind of a thing. But for them, they can be they have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, basically. And they can be mentally checked out from the person that they're having sex with because from their perspective, it's just a very shallow connection, a very lust-based, shallow, quantity-based connection instead of something that's all about chastity, which is deep and meaningful and doing the best with what they have, right? And again, as a result, that's why, they are able to, so they're not falling in love over and over and over so quickly with the people, the people that fall in love really quick. I mean, that's like FI Hero. That's FI Hero. Those are the people that fall in love. Those are the love at first sight people, not INFJs or ESTPs. So that too should hopefully bring this Acolyte user's question, bring them some peace, So speaking of which, if you guys want Chris and I to make video responses to your questions, become an Acolyte member, csjoseph.life/members, and then become a journeyman member, then upgrade your account to Acolyte. You can also upgrade at csjoseph.life/portal, which is where our members portal is. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.
I gave you all I own, put you on this golden throne, but I'm a little stronger now.
Welcome to the CS Joseph podcast. I am your host, Chris Taylor, bringing you another Acolyte question today. Today's question is, what is the difference?
Okay, we need music now. I didn't mean to do that. think that's how it should be. By the way, this is the ISFJ design. I don't know if I mentioned that. Oh, that gave me an idea for what music to play. Damn, there's 3 Pikmins. There you go, perfect. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's lo-fi is an easy go-to. I think I only played Pikmin 1.
Sit.
Oh, this is Pikmin. Yeah, Mario 64 did have a song like this. I think you might be thinking of the Dank Dank Docks or something like that. That's Dire Dire Docks, sorry. Yeah, I sent that to my ESTP friend who thinks he's an ISTP right now. But I think origins are a good way for somebody to really determine their type. Yeah, there's me being vainglorious in the gym. See. Oh, don't do that. That's some procrastination right there. It means you don't actually want to go. I always get my gym done at the very beginning of the day. I think I might need to... Oh no, I think that's the right height. Maybe. I might need to tone it down a little bit. There we go. Wait. There we go. I think you need to identify your actual desires then. Let's watch another one. Came to the right place. Selling babies. Let's see. The third orbit of TI and TE. Are you sharing credit? Stop losing sight of your goals.
Let's talk about cognitive mechanics. This is season 18, cognitive mechanics. We're discussing cognitive orbit, right? And so remember, traditionally we've been talking about cognitive axis, and cognitive axis is where you have cognitive functions and they turn on an axis with one another within the four sides of the mind. So basically, just to kind of use a small example, let's do like x, y, and then y, x, just to kind of signify functions here on this little whiteboard, etc. And so cognitive axis is basically the hero function and the inferior function are together, and then the child and the parent are also together in an axis. However, when it comes to cognitive orbit, the hero function is attached directly to the nemesis function, the parent function is attached directly to the critic function, and the child function is directly attached to the trickster function, and the inferior function is attached directly to the demon function. And this basically provides a way for how information actually flows through the human brain. Now remember, you have four perception functions, and
well,
you have
hang
four
on. Since you're a little bit newer,
functions.
let me not get into
I
the
actually
meta
had a conversation
of C.S. Joseph. Let's get into something kind of like chill. The fuck? Okay. So let's get into jack of all sources. Yeah, let's get into some stereotypes. Or basically baseline information. Protect the inferior or your demon will. Yeah, I already know that.
I gave you all I own, put you on this golden throne, but I'm a little stronger now.
What's up, Egohackers? Welcome to the C.S. Joseph podcast. I'm your host, C.S. Joseph. Rumor has it we're going to be seeing hopefully some Chris Taylor this week, and which is awesome. be able to have him on the show. I'm very excited to have him here and have him with us, to be able to share his extremely valuable opinion with us on the science. It's a big deal.
Oh, no.
Very big deal.
Too many DMs.
And especially since, I enjoy, like, his extroverted thinking child actually helps me come to a better understanding of the science as well because of his thematic approach. Logic is great, but what I've come to realize is that when it comes to this science,
My bad.
if the themes don't match the logic, then
My
it's
SC
incomplete.
demon is not being
And it's
discreet
possible
enough.
that, my foundation of logic could be, utilized or understood on a false premise, and then it just will take it in a completely wrong direction. And it's ultimately because of Chris's work that we had to redo some of the mistakes that I presented in the temples, and then that was fixed. I had the opportunity to re-present the temples in Season 18, Cognitive Mechanics, and that helps build an even better foundation for our fundamental understanding that continues to grow of the octagram, basically. So I'd like to give
I'm
special
drawing with a
thanks to Chris
stylus.
to that
Yeah,
end.
I can show you actually what
For being there
I'm
with us to
drawing with. I
facilitate
just
that.
need to make sure that I actually get the shot right.
So yeah.
Yeah, there it is. This is my drawing pad. It is connected to, it does have a screen display, but I'm not using it currently because, hang on. I don't know if you can actually see that. Yeah, so you can see that it's really big and it has a screen. I'm not using a screen display currently because I'm streaming, but it has a display.
But today's acolyte question is about a kindred relationship. It's about ISFPs and INFPs, and how these two types have a hard time setting boundaries. Probably because I've said that in the past. They absolutely do have a hard time setting boundaries. And
I got
basically, it really
3
comes
minutes
down
left.
to one thing and one thing only,
And then I have
and
to
that
end my
is their
stream at
parent
8.
function. You have extroverted sensing parent from the perspective of the ISFP. You have expert intuition parent from the perspective of the INFP. And that ends up causing a lot
Yeah, it
of
was a good
difficulties because
investment.
what happens
It's
is
very,
that
very
these two functions
accurate,
start out
1-to-1
super
ratio.
underdeveloped. I mean, development of the parent function, it wakes up. It's all of a sudden, boom, it's in their head. It starts being there in adolescence. And it's not really utilized that much, as a child. According to Chris Taylor, for example, the trickster function is ultimately what the ego decides to lead with until the parent function actually becomes fully developed and a person's sense of personal responsibility ends up kicking in. So it's because of extroverted sensing parent and extroverted intuition parent being underdeveloped that ultimately these two types really struggle, and I mean really struggle. These two types really struggle with setting boundaries. But there's also another aspect to it. It's not just SE parent, it's not just any parent, but also they have the same inferior function, which is extroverted thinking inferior, which is fear or anxiety or insecurity about their status, their reputation, how they look to other people, how they're regarded, how they're respected by others, how much power and authority they actually have, and whether or not other people think highly of them. These people are hypersensitive and hyper aware of what other people think about them. And the thing is too is that an ISFP, for example, doesn't like being rejected. Extroverted sensing parent. The INFP doesn't like to be unwanted and not desired by others. Extroverted intuition parent.
Okay,
And when
I
it's
gotta
really
go
underdeveloped,
soon.
they can be
I got one more minute.
hypersensitive to that, because to a young ISFP, the idea of being rejected by anybody is extremely controversial to them. And it means oh, this person rejected me, so they end up taking it really personally. They take it as if, well, I don't have enough status, I don't have enough importance as a human being, as a person. I'm not respectable enough, I don't have enough status enough. And then because they see that, they assume that, they're like, well, then I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, right? That's how they end up rationalizing it within their FI hero. And same thing goes with the INFP. It's like, hey, you know, if I'm not desirable enough, you know, these people are going to think less of me.
Yay, I'm glad.
And
It's
then
always
I'm
good to
feel
learn
bad
new
about
things.
myself. I'm going to feel like
Okay,
I don't
that's
even matter.
8
You know what I'm
o'clock.
saying? That
Thank
ends up
y'all for
becoming-
showing up. I'm sad that Brian didn't get to see it live, but I'm sure he'll look at the recording. But thanks for joining me, those of y'all that did live, and I hope y'all enjoy the recording.